This high-tech corporate building was supposed to be completely secure. But ruthless gangsters just broke in to eliminate a billionaire target. They thought they trapped a defenseless victim on the top floor. But seconds before her execution, she drops a chilling warning. That her bodyguard isn't just a protector. He's the world's deadliest hitman. The story begins in a dimly lit American club, where a singer's voice fills the room. Among the crowd sits Gon, a cold, professional hitman, quietly waiting for his mark. At the table next to him, he notices a young girl named Yumi sitting all alone. They share a brief, innocent smile, a rare moment of humanity for a man in his line of work. Suddenly, a Russian mafia member arrives with a team of bodyguards, and Gon confirms his target by checking a photo on his phone. The Russians head to a private office behind the club for a secret meeting with a South Korean man named Hyun. Gon moves in like a shadow, storming the room and eliminating every Russian in sight with clinical precision. After killing Hyun, Gon moves to secure the man's laptop, but he hears a sudden movement behind the door. Acting on pure instinct, he fires several rounds through the wood. When he swings the door open, his heart stops. Standing there is little Yumi, the girl from the club. She's been hit by his gunfire, and as she collapses, something inside Gon breaks. He is a changed man from that moment on. A few days later, Gon is a wreck. His best friend and fellow operative, Chaos, finds him unconscious and spiraling in his own guilt. Chaos and his team clean him up and drag him to their ruthless boss, Brian. Brian dismisses the girl's death as a mere accident, telling Gon to stop drowning in regret and get back to work. He explains the high-stakes situation. A South Korean businessman named John Lee has been laundering a staggering $100 million for the triads. Hyun was Lee's employee, but he stole the transaction details and fled to America to sell them to the Russians. Gon's hit stopped that deal, but the money is still missing. The organization reveals that before Hyun died, he sent an encrypted email to 3 people. 2 have been traced, but the third is Hyun's wife, Mogyong. She is the key to the account details. Brian gives Gon a dark incentive to take the job, telling him that this woman just lost her 5-year-old daughter and has nothing left to live for. He claims that by killing her, Gon would actually be freeing her from her grief. Chaos drives Gon home, handing him a file on his target, Mogyong. He reminds Gon that the organization has a massive amount of money on the line and promises that once this recovery is complete, Gon can finally retire for good. Alone in his house, Gon looks at an old childhood photo of his mother. The sight of her triggers a deep, boiling rage, and he lashes out at her image, revealing a dark past and a hatred for the woman who raised him. The scene shifts to South Korea, where Mogyong arrives at Ventura Holdings. She's a top-tier accounting risk manager, but there's a dark cloud over her workplace. It's the same company where her husband, Hyun, worked before his death. The firm is owned by the corrupt John Lee, who has Mogyong's office rigged with hidden cameras. He's convinced that Hyun passed the stolen Triad bank details to her before he was eliminated. Gon touches down in South Korea, and John Lee sends his head of security, Byun, to handle the pickup. Gon, ever the professional, subtly stalks Byun at the airport first, watching him from behind to gauge his skill. It's a power move that leaves the bodyguard visibly rattled. Byun and his team drive Gon to a gritty apartment in an old building. Gon remains stone-cold silent during the ride, and the moment he's alone, he begins a clinical inspection of his weapons and tactical gear. Later, we see Mogyong visiting a hospital where her elderly mother is being treated. She's struggling with deep trauma and asks a doctor for sleeping pills just to get through the night. She has no clue that Gon is a ghost in the shadows, following her every move. The next day, she's questioned by the police regarding her husband's illegal activities. She tells them the truth. They had been separated for 2 years and were on the verge of a divorce. She doesn't care about his money, she just wants her daughter's belongings back. While Mogyong is out, Gon slips into her apartment. He finds a high-tech safe, but it's voice-activated, only she can open it. To get what he needs, Gon tracks her to the hospital. When she leaves her phone unattended for a moment, he quickly installs a cloning device. Now, he doesn't need to follow her physically, he has total access to her digital life. As he monitors her phone from his hideout, Gon sees a side of his target he didn't expect. Mogyong isn't looking at bank accounts or secret emails. Instead, she spends hours scrolling through photos of her late daughter, Yumi, sobbing while listening to old voice notes. Seeing her grief up close hits Gon hard. He's the one who took that little girl's life, and now he's watching the wreckage he left behind. At a company event, John Lee puts on a friendly boss act, awarding Mogyong for her performance. It's a pathetic attempt to manipulate her into revealing the money's location, but she truly knows nothing. Afterward, she heads back to the hospital. She ends up in an elevator with a mysterious stranger, Gon. When the lift suddenly stalls, she starts to panic, but Gon stays calm. He talks her through it, his voice steady and reassuring. As they talk, he secretly records her voice, capturing the phrases he needs to crack her safe. Back at his apartment, Gon prepares for the hit. He cleans his guns and sharpens his focus, but something has changed. He keeps playing back the recordings of Mogyong's voice. He isn't just studying a target anymore, he's starting to feel a connection to the woman he was sent to kill. The next morning, Mogyong goes to the police station to collect her daughter's belongings before heading into work. While looking through the items at her desk, she notices something she missed before. The small keychain on her daughter's phone is actually a hidden flash drive. She plugs it into her computer and discovers it contains the secret bank details for the massive Triad fortune. Even with millions of dollars in front of her, Mogyong doesn't care about the money. She bypasses the financial files and starts scrolling through photos of her daughter's last days in America. She makes a backup of the data on her office computer, puts the flash drive back with her daughter's things, and heads home. However, accessing those sensitive files triggers a silent alarm for John Lee. He checks the office security footage, sees the flash drive, and realizes she has exactly what he's looking for. While she's still out, Gon enters her apartment. He uses the voice recordings he took in the elevator to trick the voice-activated safe. But when it clicks open, there's no money and no flash drive inside. There is only a single key. He follows the key to a locked door, which opens into Yumi's bedroom, a room Mogyong keeps frozen in time like a shrine. It becomes crystal clear to Gon that this woman has no interest in the Triad's millions. She is just a grieving mother trying to hold onto her daughter's memory. Suddenly, Gon gets a call from John Lee's men. They tell him she has the information and order him to kill her and secure the drive. His job is almost over. When Mogyong finally arrives home, Gon is already in the shadows, weapon drawn. She puts on a DVD of Yumi's school performance and begins to sob as she watches her daughter dance. Watching her, Gon is overcome with guilt and starts to cry himself. He realizes he can't pull the trigger while she's in this state, so he retreats back into Yumi's room to steady his nerves. He finally forces himself to step out to finish the job, but he finds Mogyong slumped over on the sofa. She's unconscious, having taken a dangerous amount of sleeping pills in an attempt to end her pain. Her daughter's phone and the flash drive are sitting right there on the table. Seeing her like this triggers a painful flashback for Gon. He remembers being 7 years old, stuck on a highway with his mother. She was a drug addict who viewed her own son as a burden. She tried to abandon him at a gas station, but he hid in the car, desperate not to lose her. After hours of driving, she stopped the car and took her own life right in front of him. That trauma left Gon alone in the world and fueled a lifelong hatred for his mother. Looking at Mogyong, he realizes she isn't like his mother. She loved her daughter more than life itself. Gon decides he won't let her die. He leaves the apartment and calls the police, reporting her condition anonymously. Because of his call, the paramedics arrive just in time to save her life. When John Lee realizes that Gon has gone rogue and hasn't handed over the flash drive, he loses it. He orders his head of security, Byun, to hunt Gon down immediately. Back in America, the organization is also moving. Brian decides that Gon has become a liability that could ruin the Triad's reputation. He sends Chaos and a team of elite cleaners to South Korea with one simple order: eliminate the target and anyone who gets in the way, including Gon. At the hospital, Mogyong wakes up to find the police waiting. They reveal the truth, that her husband was a money launderer for the mafia, and that's why he and her daughter were targeted in America. They beg her to hand over any information she has on John Lee's black money, but Mogyong doesn't know who to trust. She stays silent and keeps the flash drive hidden. Suddenly, Gon calls her. He warns her that a professional hitman is already inside the hospital to finish her off. Within seconds, a killer enters the ward, neutralizing a nurse and cornering Mogyong. She locks herself in the bathroom, terrified, as Gon arrives just in time. A brutal fight breaks out, and Gon manages to fight off the assassin, who barely escapes with his life. Gon realizes he can't protect her from the shadows anymore. He gives Mogyong her daughter's phone and the flash drive back, urging her to use the data to testify against John Lee and the Triads. The police move her to a secure basement to process the transaction details, but the organization is always one step ahead. A gunman bursts out of the elevator, executing the officers on guard. Gon arrives and guns down the attacker, ending the threat for now. The situation spiraling, Gon calls Byun and tells him to back off. But the phone is snatched by Chaos, who has finally landed in Korea. Chaos warns Gon that the girl has to die, and if Gon stands in the way, he'll have to kill his best friend. Tensions boil over as John Lee tries to give orders, but Chaos quickly reminds him that he doesn't work for a local businessman, he only follows the triad. He makes it clear, they will get the drive, but only Chaos is allowed to touch Gon. John Lee doesn't like being sidelined. He secretly offers Byun $2 million to bypass the triad, kill Mogyeong, and bring him the drive directly. Meanwhile, the police take Mogyeong to a specialist hacker because half of the drive is encrypted. Just as they start to crack the code, Gon calls with a frantic warning. John Lee knows exactly where they are, there's a mole in the police force. Before the hacker can react, a corrupt cop turns his gun on his own men, executes them, and snatches the drive. The walls are closing in, and the people Mogyeong thought were her protectors have just become her executioners. The corruption reaches its peak as the mole meets Byun, demanding more money for the stolen flash drive. Byun, showing no loyalty, simply stabs the officer and leaves him for dead. He delivers the drive to John Lee, who immediately orders his gang to move in and finish Mogyeong once and for all. As the goons storm the building, Gon appears like a ghost. In a blur of gunfire and blades, he dismantles the squad before they can even touch her. Outside, the situation turns into a war zone. Chaos and his team unleash a hail of gunfire on the building, mowing down their own injured men in the process. While Mogyeong takes cover, Alvaro, one of Chaos' elite shooters, bursts in to finish her. Gon reacts instantly, hammering bullets into Alvaro's vest to stun him and snatching his weapon. Trapped and surrounded, Gon calls Mogyeong one more time. He tells her there's a black SUV waiting below. He promises to draw the shooter's fire so she can make a break for it. Desperate, Mogyeong finally asks the question, "Who are you?" Gon hesitates before admitting the truth. His name is Gon, and he was there the night her daughter died. He tells her he will explain everything once she is safe. Gon draws Chaos into a fierce gunfight, eventually leaping from the building to escape. In a rare moment of emotion, Chaos catches Gon's hand, pleading with him, "I don't want to kill you. Why are you doing this for a girl?" Gon simply replies that he's tired of the bloodshed before letting go. He hits the ground running, even after taking a bullet to the shoulder from John's rifle. Meanwhile, Mogyeong doesn't make it to the SUV. Alvaro catches her and delivers an ultimatum to Gon, "If you want to save her, come to the Ventura Holdings headquarters." Gon knows he can't walk into a trap without a plan. He calls in a fake bomb threat to the police, then blows up his own apartment floor to make the threat look real. Within minutes, the building is swarmed by the bomb squad and high alert units. Inside the chaos, Mogyeong confronts John Lee, asking why her daughter had to die. Lee coldly shifts the blame, calling her husband a coward who used his family as a human shield to hide from the Russians. As the police close in, Gon uses a jammer to disable all mobile networks and signal towers in the area, cutting off the villain's communication. He knows he can't take on Chaos, Alvaro, and John all at once, so he begins to pick them off one by one. He corners Alvaro first, challenging him to a hand-to-hand fight. But just as the fight peaks, their teammate John arrives and makes a shocking move. He shoots Alvaro instead of Gon, allowing Gon to slip away into the shadows of the building. As the police realize the bomb threat was a ruse, they clear the signal jammers, and the building's power and CCTV flicker back to life. On the executive floor, John Lee is frantic. With Byun standing over him, he desperately tries to finalize the $100 million transfer. But Mogyeong has escaped her captors. She finds a terminal and, using her expertise as a risk manager, she freezes the transaction midway. The Triad's fortune is now trapped in digital limbo. Knowing the Triad will execute him for losing their money, John Lee loses his mind. When Byun demands his $2 million payout, Lee snaps and insults him, telling him to run for his life. Fed up with the abuse and the broken promises, Byun doesn't hesitate. He stabs Lee to death and prepares to vanish with whatever cash he can carry. Elsewhere in the building, a wounded Gon is cornered by Johan. But the elite specialist has one more trick up his sleeve. He rigs a microwave with metal and chemicals, creating a massive improvised explosion that kills Johan instantly. Gon emerges with his assault rifle and runs straight into his old friend, Chaos. The two legends open fire until their magazines are empty, eventually falling into a brutal hand-to-hand brawl. The fight only stops when a heavy computer panel collapses, pinning them both and leaving Chaos severely injured. Meanwhile, Byun finds Mogyong trying to flee. He begins to beat her mercilessly, wanting her to suffer before he ends her life. In his arrogance, he tosses his knife aside to use his bare hands. It's a fatal mistake. Mogyong reaches for the blade and stabs Byun, finally fighting back against the monsters who ruined her life. Gon, now barely clinging to life after taking multiple bullets, reaches the CCTV room. He sees Mogyong is safe but knows the nightmare isn't over. He picks up a walkie-talkie and contacts her. He tells her a man is coming up the elevator to kill her and that she must pick up a nearby shotgun and be ready to fire. Mogyong is hesitant, but Gon gives her the ultimate motivation. He tells her the man in that elevator is the one who killed her daughter. The elevator dings. The doors slide open. Mogyong levels the shotgun and fires, unloading a shell into the man who steps out. But it isn't Chaos or Byun. It's Gon. He didn't want to live with the blood of an innocent child on his hands anymore. He chose to die by her hand as his final act of penance. As he lies dying, Chaos arrives and prepares to finish Mogyong, but Gon uses his last ounce of strength to grab Chaos' jacket, stopping him from pulling the trigger. Mogyong watches the life fade from the mysterious man's eyes, still unaware that he was the one she was actually hunting. Even after the elevator doors close, she calls out to him on the walkie-talkie, but there is no answer. Gon is finally free, from the world, from the violence, and from the crushing weight of his guilt. That is the brutal end of a man who lived as a monster but died as a protector. Gon spent his life taking souls, but in the end, he gave his own just to balance the scales. It's a haunting reminder that some debts can only be paid in blood. If this story of redemption hit you hard, smash that like button and subscribe to Cinemaned for more of the deadliest heroes in cinema. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.